What's up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to Bills HQ, where we talk all things Buffalo Bills football and NFL. I'm your host, Julian Mott. And ladies and gentlemen, we got a football game tomorrow. I don't know if you guys knew that, but the Bills and the Rams kick off the 2022 NFL season as of this recording tomorrow at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5:20 where they're kicking off at. Um, Yeah, and I just wanna I just think it's so interesting. I still think it's interesting that the Bills were even chosen for this game. And I think it really goes to the larger point of uh just how big of a favorite the Bills are in most betting books. They had a great conversation really all day on WGR about the hype. Is it warranted? The whole thing is that this graphic going around the NFL Network crew going like 5 for 5, picking the Bills not to win this game, to win the Super Bowl. 5 for 5. Think about that, guys. In a conference where you have Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been to the AFC Championship game 4 years in a row. Oh, by the way, they've been to a couple Super Bowls as well. In a conference where you have the Chargers, who have one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, who have one of the most stacked rosters in the league. They added an all-pro cornerback in JC Jackson. They added Khalil Mack. I mean, we'll see what he still has to offer, but they have him on the team now. In a conference where you have the Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC, the team that represented the AFC in the championship last year, they've improved, right? Their offensive line is better. They're a better team than they were last year, but everybody is on the Buffalo Bills. It's a little scary for me personally, but I think that's just because it's new. How do we handle being the favorites? It's different than last year. We had a good season in 2020, but the questions were, can they do it again? You got to remember, coming into the 2021 season, there were still questions about, can Josh Allen even do this in full stadiums? Do you remember that? There was no fans in 2020, so there was a big thought about, oh, with no fans in here, Josh is fine. But people still wanted to see what he had to offer when there's 70,000 people in the seats screaming their heads off. And of course, that has no difference. Josh is one of the greatest talents at the quarterback position of all time. So, makes no difference where or who's there or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's different than last year, and the expectations are obviously much different. It really was. We were feeling Super Bowl last year, but this year it really feels like Super Bowl or bust. Now, of course, the Bills still have like a 6% chance of winning the Super Bowl, which to me is actually kind of high. It's actually really high. But think about it, a 6% chance? And that's because you still have to play in a one game elimination tournament to win the thing. Oh, and by the way, the conference is stacked with quarterbacks and talent. I mean, the AFC is in a place in which we haven't seen in years where the talent is just crazy. I mean, it's like nobody wanted to be in the NFC. It's insane. It's insane. And I'm wondering how much of the fact that we're such a big favorite in everybody's minds, how much of that has to do with Von Miller, the great Von Miller, sorry. How much of it has to do with Von Miller? If for example, if we got a somebody like a Chandler Jones who ended up going to the Raiders, another AFC team, um, but I mean Chandler Jones during the process was thought of as a similar pass rusher. We would have been ecstatic with Chandler Jones, but would Chandler Jones have done what Von Miller is doing now in terms of hype, both locally and nationally, I don't think so. I think Von Miller's on a different level when it comes to that stuff. I think Von has a big impact on just how big of a favorite are we are in so many people's eyes. So many people's eyes. So I just thought that was interesting. Like it's just funny the hype for this team. I've never seen anything like it, especially from a national perspective. But of course, you're I'm 26 years old. I wasn't alive for the Super Bowl run. That was really right after I was born, right before I was born. So it's really exciting, and yeah, the season starts tomorrow. We go against Matthew Stafford, Cooper Cup. Um, there's a guy on the defensive line. I forget his name. Some say he's the greatest defensive player of all time. Aaron Donald. Oh, Jalen Ramsey. Oh, Leonard Floyd can play. Oh, Bobby Wagner's on the team too. Allen Robinson. This team's stacked, and we go against them. Three guys. They have three guys, ladies and gentlemen. Three guys in the top 10 of the NFL football players in Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and Cooper Cup. Three guys in the top 10. 30% of the top 10 NFL players are on the Rams. Isn't that insane to think about? This team's loaded. And and they just won the Super Bowl. They just won the Super Bowl. And who did the NFL pick to go up against that monster in their stadium? Our Buffalo Bills. And again, like I have to ask the question, would we be in this position if we didn't get Vaughn? If we didn't get Vaughn. I'm transitioning more into the game. Um, yeah, what's it gonna look like? I'm so interested to see, and there's so many different angles to break down, and obviously we don't have all day, but just a few things that I think the Bills really need to do to get a W, coming from the most novice of eyes. Um, Number one, we have to establish the trenches, and I know everybody's gonna say that, but it's just so true. And to me, and I know it's a preseason game, but to me, like it's just evident. Like for example, in the preseason game against the Broncos, when both lines are moving people, it's just easier to play football. It just is. When you're constantly playing forward, it's easier to play football. It's easier to gain yards. You're a little bit more comfortable. It's just the truth. Now, to me, it's twofold because I really think dominating the trenches means two different things on on both sides. To me, offensively, we need to establish the line. Excuse me. We need to establish the line. So we need to get a couple yards push off the ball right away. We need to be people movers, and I think we got some people movers on the offensive line. I think they're gonna try and establish the run a little bit. I think they're gonna try and be a bit of efficient in the run game. We may see a little bit more volume than you think. Maybe I don't know, but we need to be moving people. Trying anyway. Um, Containing Aaron Donald. That's really number one, but containing Aaron Donald, that's another thing we need to do. But defensively, in terms of controlling the trenches, I think we really need to dominate. Like if there's one area of their team that maybe that maybe might be a little bit less than average, it's going to be their offensive line. They've got two new starters on the offensive line. One of them at a key position in left tackle, where they really just lost a stalwart at left tackle, and Andrew Whitworth, a guy that played for 150 years. It's hard to get 150 years of experience back on that left tackle. So they got a young guy there. They got a young guy there, which is cool. Um, but that young guy's going to be going against the great Von Miller. We need to dominate, and we heard Dion Dawkins say it in his interview with Chris Brown and Steve Tasker on One Bills Live. He said it's different. Like nothing against Jerry Hughes or Mario Addison or Harrison Phillips or Quentin Jefferson, like nothing against any of those guys. Like those are, I'm sure they're great guys. From everything we've heard, they were great. Obviously, Jerry Hughes is one of the great players of Buffalo Bills history. He was a little bit older, but we heard him say it's different. Yeah, I mean these dudes are dogs. Vaughn needs to dominate. We need to see every one of those millions of dollars. And we know he's motivated. We heard the hype video. Vaughn is here and he's here to win. He's here to win us a Super Bowl. And I trust him with that. But they need to dominate. And we need to see Ed Oliver become that dominant defensive tackle that we drafted him ninth overall to be. We need to see it. We need to see that combination of quickness and explosion. A combination, in which we don't see a whole lot from the defensive tackle position. A combination in which we saw a lot of down the stretch. We saw a different Ed Oliver in that third year, and we're expecting to see an even bigger jump. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about a guy like Tim Settle. Tim Settle. I mean, he has some reps in the preseason games against some of the coach starters that took me back a second. I had to say, whoa. I had heard that if he got some time, he could be a guy. But you see him have reps against guys like Quentin Nelson, and he is throwing them around. I mean, throwing him around like a rag doll. Oh, by the way, I didn't even mention Daquan Jones, who is going to be the starter next to Ed Oliver. A guy that probably isn't as athletic as the other guys, but just in terms of a guy that you will not move. He's going to be there and he will not be moved. He is an anchor. He's not going, you're not running the ball at him. And if you do, you're not going anywhere. Oh, I didn't even mention, you guys remember Jordan Phillips? Guys who had 9 sacks from the defensive tackle position in 2019? He's back. And by all accounts, he looks great and explosive. And if he is even close to the Jordan Phillips that we got in 2019, he is going to wreak havoc on the quarterback. He is going to be able to rush the passer from that defensive tackle position. He is a penetrator. That's what he does well. And this defense is really suited for him to just do what he does. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting. Oh man, my guy, my favorite guy, Greg, Greg, Greg. As Stefan Diggs called him, Gregory Rousseau. I never thought I would hear a story about Gregory Rousseau swinging on Stefan Diggs, but we heard it. We heard it. That man's gonna be a dog. What did Vaughn say? He's feeding him gunpowder and something else, and he bringing it out of him. I'm with it. I'm excited. I am here for it. I think our defensive line is gonna eat, and that's one of the big things about us establishing the trenches. especially because we don't exactly know what they're going to have behind them, specifically on the boundary. Um, which let's transition to that, which is a bit of an uneasy conversation. What is gonna happen outside with us not having Tre'Davious White? I don't, this may be the toughest game without him. I mean, it's gonna be tough week 2 against Miami with Waddle and Hill, and Cedric Wilson. Like, they got guys that can stress you for sure. Um, we just don't know what the scheme looks like for Miami yet. But by all accounts, they'll be able to stress you. Uh, but we've seen Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Cup wreak havoc. And you've got a guy in Kyer Elam and a guy in Christian Benford, both whom, McDermott wouldn't say who would start. Which I think it's, coach in the press conference said it's a little bit of competitive advantage, and for them, whatever that means, coach. I think it's 100% a competitive advantage. I think they don't want them to be able to go back and look at all their college tape, and which they're doing anyway, but they we don't know yet. But Leslie Frazier did say that they'll both get time regardless. So you got a couple guys that are inexperienced. You got Dane Jackson, who started down the stretch, but he's a seventh round, third year player. So there's questions there. There's questions there. But there's a possibility we won't get those questions answered because Matthew Stafford will be on the ground. So that's what I'm banking on. That's what I'm banking on. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer back. So in terms of communication, in terms of people being lined up where they're supposed to be, all that we know will be on point. In terms of the operation, of the way the defense is called, all that good stuff. That'll all be good. We got all our horses there. So, the secondary there should be okay. Now, you know, another thing is the offense. The offense. I'm really excited about Ken Dorsey. I don't know why. I have no reason to be, really. I mean, there's other than talk, there's been nothing to tell me to be as excited as I am about him, but there's just something about the goofy glasses, about the goofy way he talks, about the goofy hair, about the goofy 6'5"-ishness of him. There's just something about all that goofiness that gives me a quiet confidence. I would love to see this man just go crazy one time. I just want to see what it looks like. He probably gets so red. But there's something about old Kenneth Dorsey. What is it? What did his coach call him? Kenny. His coach called him Kenny. There's just something about old Kenny that I trust. In Kenny, we trust. So, am I a little nervous about what's going to happen tomorrow with the offense? A little bit. What happens if they get off to a slow start? What happens if they have a couple three and outs right off the bat? That's all. Those are things that they're going to have to work through. This is a guy that's never done this job before. This is going to be his first time doing it, and there's always growing pains in your first time doing something. So let's just hope that this team is talented enough and Josh is smart enough to be able to adjust to whatever type of deficiencies or mistakes that may happen with a first time offensive coordinator. Um, I'm excited to see how they use James Cook. We didn't see, I don't think we saw at all how they were going to use James Cook in the preseason. Maybe if you read between the lines a little bit, we saw some wide zone runs, that were successful, got him out on the edge, allowed him to make some plays on the edge. got another ball in the passing game a tad, but I don't know. Does it seem like they were saving him? Maybe it seemed like that a little bit to me. So I think they'll be able to put James Cook in a variety of different situations, and they're not going to ask him to think a whole lot. They're just going to give him the ball and say, "Go make a play, kid." And I think he's going to be able to make a couple plays. Um, Gabriel Davis. Does anybody else get the feeling that Gabriel Davis is going to be the top receiver in this game overall? I am. I'm starting to feel like Allen is going to go to him early and often. I watched the video and I wish I could give the guy credit, but he kind of just broke down. He kind of just broke down the rapport that Allen and Davis, specifically over the last few weeks of the 2020 season, the rapport that happened and the buildup that allowed that Kansas City game to happen to the point where he's looking at him first. There were progressions there. There were growing pains. There were times where they weren't on the same page, where they'd read a coverage and instead of going in, they go out. Things like that. So it was a great video. It was a great video. So I'm guessing that Josh is gonna be looking for him early and often, and they're gonna have success. That's my guess. If you're a Gabriel Davis fantasy owner, which I'm not, I'm actually playing against Gabriel Davis this week, so good luck to him. Gabriel Davis and Josh and Isaiah McKenzie and the Bills. This guy's the Bills team. It's ridiculous, actually. The team is terrible, but But yeah, if you're a Gabriel Davis fantasy owner, you I think will be in for a treat. Um, I think that's gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think there's too much more that I wanted to hit. Um, I just kind of wanted to talk about some aspects of the game that maybe I had some concerns about, or maybe that I was excited about. Overall, the season starts tomorrow. It's gonna be a fun season. Um, I think we should try and soak it in. It's funny because, Bulldog always compares his experience to like the Sabres, the early Sabres seasons, which I remember. But of course, I mean, I'm not really a Sabres guy. But I remember when I was younger watching those teams just because they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, of course, you're going to watch it. But, we really should take every game for what it is on its own and enjoy it. I know there's bigger goals that we have in mind, like we want a championship. But you want to make sure you're able to stop and smell the roses along the way. So, probably got a post game video coming. Um, yeah, appreciate you guys being here. Drop a like, subscribe if you like this type of content. Buffalo Bills, NFL. That's what you get here with your boy Julian. Um, as always, it's a pleasure. That'll do it for me, guys. And yeah, hope to see you next time. Bye bye.